Good morning, troops, from a sunny San Francisco today. So hopefully with a connection that stays stable after the winds and the rain of the last couple of weeks here. We have at least one day of sun today, so it seems like we might be stable. Today, the discussion around meetings with Matt is focused on preseason swimming, setting the mission for what we're looking for. I'm going to give you a little bit of background into my thinking of how we design the sets globally, how I think about the sets, and open up the floodgates of questions that often come with some of the swimming focus. So we're going to dive straight into the swim discussion. I would encourage you, as I mentioned on Monday, I would encourage you to head to the education tab of the website. We put it into this week's Coaches Bulletin. There's a lot of information there, a lot of really rich content that you can scroll through. We've done a full migration now of all of our educational content. And you can search for a subject if you want to search for nutrition, etc., etc. The one thing missing or to come on it is a lot of our content. We have to go through some of the keyword search stuff, and that will be coming. So if you search for Vineman nutrition and nothing comes up, you might try just a different keyword and it might pop up. But there's a lot of content, both in stuff of articles that I have written in various outside publications, but of course all of the access to these meetings with Matt, all of which have been indexed so that if somebody was discussing on December the 8th a power file around Russian sprints 20 minutes in, you should be able to find it pretty easily. So it's really a step forward for your guys' ability to find education and to look for things specifically that you'd like to do. So enjoy that. Now, I'd also encourage you, that's got some really nice traction, a lot of enjoyable commentary and discussions going on the Facebook page, the private Purple Patch Facebook page. We have a good amount of athletes on there, a very solid amount, moving towards a couple of hundred Purple Patch athletes in there. I really encourage you to participate in there. And I will say this, I proudly did not have a Facebook page. And this was the thing that tipped me over the edge to get me involved. So I'm in there. And it's a fun, enjoyable way to see the other athletes, chat to the other athletes, share experiences, and even coordinate some of the logistics. So, I'm going to Santa Rosa. Where are we going to stay? Where's everyone planning on staying? Anyone have any intel on what the course is like, etc., etc. And some of our pros are really starting to participate in there as well. I saw David answering a few questions around wheel choice and things like that. So having the access to the pros is obviously a nice thing, and you get a little bit of insight into their personality. On there at the moment is a few videos from the three of them that are down with Paul Buick in New Zealand. We have three of our pros training with Paul at the moment, almost doing a 6-week sort of immersive small group training program or training camp with him, Drew Scott, David Giardini, and Laura Siddell. So they've been sent to Devil's Island basically for 6 weeks of punishment. But there's some fun videos on there of those guys training, and you can see some of the riding in New Zealand, which looks absolutely super. But let's talk about swimming. And I will do my monologue. I'll give you some framing, and then as athletes start to join the session live, and then we'll ask questions. If not, we'll the four of us that are live currently will have a roundtable discussion on that, on swimming and anything else. So let's get into it. So pre-season swimming. Let's first look back and draw ourselves back and think about the season at large. Again, similar to how I started with the run session on Monday. If you haven't looked at the session from last week around preseason success globally, I think it's good foundational content to provide some of the context for what we're going to go through today. But as we channel down the vertical of swimming, I think we have to also look back at postseason, remembering that the season of training generally, I emotionally break up as postseason just before the holidays, preseason that we're in now over these next few months, little bit of sharpening phase. Then, of course, at least 50 to 60% of the calendar being race-specific training for the demands of your events. Revolutionary, I know, that we're actually going to train for the demands of your events. But we are in pre-season, so we have, in effect, most of the group have gone through postseason. And So let's have a little look back at postseason and think about what the emphasis and what the focus is now. If you did not get to go through postseason, it's okay. You bleed right into this preseason phase, no matter the level, because there's a real sense of crossover, and there's a few little nooks and crannies and things that you might evolve a little bit that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But in postseason, this season, we had a very heavy emphasis on technique. And in my mind, I took a step back and thinking, what are the fundamental elements around technique that I really felt like could provide the biggest yield for swimmers that were swimming virtually, in other words, not in front of me every day, as well as those athletes that were swimming in front of me in San Francisco every day. And so we introduced the purple patch drill, something that I did last year with my squad here to really good effect. And by all accounts, I think it has been really fruitful for athletes that have immersed themselves in that drill. I just got a video from Dave, and I could see that the connection and the timing of him doing the purple patch drill, executing the drill, I can see the bridge between real swimming. And so the only drill that we actually introduced and executed in the postseason was that singular purple patch drill, single arm drill, whatever we might call it. We also really focused on some power work, and I introduced some parachutes for some faster swimmers, or swimmers that I felt like were powerful enough to handle them, as it were, but a waistband with a parachute dragging behind to really force some of the power work. And the reason for that is to try and strike from a technical standpoint and an awareness standpoint to help the athlete feel the necessity that underwater they're holding tension on the water. So rather than just letting the hand move through the water at one speed, the goal being propulsion, we need to actually find and hold real, as I call, purchase on the water and drive that backwards. And so right away, when we're far away from race-specific training, we have the opportunity to actually focus on some very, very short and powerful stuff. Aligns really well with the running discussion that we had the other day, and there's no surprising there. We also did general fast speed work, and the reason to do fast speed work over short distances was that really naturally fosters the athlete's awareness of holding good posture in the water and good stroke rate. And so we had this cross-pollination of a fair bit of speed work, albeit with lots of recovery, so that we could try and foster the technical elements that we were really looking for. So we also started to think about, okay, what are the key elements that we're really going to look for as we start to build in through the postseason. So we had a real focus on posture. If you remember the discussions around streamlining, every time you push off the wall, hands not over the head like so, but really stretched and thin, and accentuating the great posture that you're looking for. And with that faster swimming that I mentioned before, really helping you feel what it's like to have good posture. We talked a lot about hand entry, making sure the hand's not entering near the head, but able to enter further out in front of you in the channel between midline and the shoulder. So having a real awareness. So a lot of the sessions in postseason included snorkel swimming, so that we didn't have the disruption of a turning head of breathing, so that we could focus and see where our hand was entering, and see, even in the line of pull, that we weren't pulling outside the line, we weren't crossing across the midline, but instead pulling straight down the line. So we had a lot of tools or toys that we were using to help move athletes towards better technique that we were looking for. The final element on the pull, beyond pulling in a straight line, is we saw from a lot of the videos and the San Francisco squad that people had a big tendency to either pull out at the start of their swim stroke or cross the midline. And so we used the cue of making sure that the fingers were pulling towards the midline, and that helps getting the external rotation of the shoulder or the elbow and a higher elbow. So that's sort of the fingers being lower than the elbow. A really good thing to think about. Here's my midline all the way through. I'm just going to make sure I'm pulling towards the midline, snorkel on, making sure I'm not seeing that hand cross across the front. So we had a lot of the sessions that were built around technique. At the same time, We wanted to build frequency. I really encouraged athletes to swim a decent amount in postseason so that we could build some resilience and start to prepare the body for some of the work that's coming. So now we look forward to preseason. And even if we're just starting, we start to march on and say, okay, what are we looking forward? What are we looking for? What's our goal? What's our mission from now, early January, all the way through until, give or take, April time? The emphasis in our swim program as a part of a triathlon program, so it's still swim, bike and run. We're just thinking myopically of swimming at the moment, but we still have to realize that it all interacts with biking and running. We have several missions. The first is a continuation of that technical development. So really important that we maintain a heavy emphasis on doing it well. And so I've decided this year to carry on bleeding in the purple patch drill. You're going to see that drill over the course of this block of work that most of us are currently in, all the way through to the next block of work. We're going to see a lot of the purple patch drill coming across and maintaining in there. We start to have it to be slightly less emphasized in the session because of our mission number 2 I'll come to, but it's always there, often as a pre-main set. And the reason I'm integrating that on maintaining it is it's just simply, a couple of reasons. It's been very effective for swimmers, but it's also a school of self-learning. It gives you great feedback. If you're really engaged and you understand how to do that drill, it actually gives you a bit of an aha moment when you get it right. You know, oh, I feel it. I feel the acceleration. And so you don't need necessarily a coach on deck to actually help you and say, no, you're doing it right. It actually has a self-feedback loop, and that's fantastic. Another element of technical development that we want to bleed into the preseason and continue is the power work. Highly effective, very important, a long way from race-specific training, and something that's missing, quite frankly, from most swimmers' emphasis in their triathlon swimming training. So if you're new to Purple Patch, this is going to be a little bit of a shock that you're doing so much power and speed work. But that's our first mission, is technical development. Coupled with that, and perhaps higher in hierarchy overall, is we want to, over the coming months, build a huge platform of fitness and swimming resilience. This is the time of the year that, in fact, for many athletes, when it's colder out, when the days are shorter, this is a super time to build your platform of fitness for the entire 2017 season. It's a great time to do it. If there is one of the disciplines to emphasize, no matter what your strengths and weaknesses, it's very rare that emphasizing swimming or focusing on swimming over the course of preseason is going to negatively affect your overall season. It's a fantastic platform. It's a great way to build general endurance, really good way to build general endurance. It's low impact or no impact for the most part. It has great cross-pollination to biking and running. And also you can hit the range of intensities in swimming more frequently than perhaps you can in cycling and running. So as we go through and come out of the holidays that we mentioned before and we go for pre-season, having these 3 months that you say, I'm going to go after the swim a little bit, this is going to be really, really, really emphasized for me. I'm going to get there. It's not just about improving your swim. It's about creating a platform of strength, endurance, and resilience and cardiovascular conditioning that can help on your curve up to overall triathlon fitness and readiness. I would add to it that as we then move into the race-specific season, we know that if you're getting ready for a key Olympic distance race, or even more so a half Ironman or Ironman, and we say, okay, the sun is out, we now need to go out and get some miles, the biking and running training does become more important and also more time consuming often. We start to ride outside, so it starts to take up, for many people, more hours in the week. If we've developed a great platform of fitness in swimming, January, February, March, April for the Northern Hemisphere athletes, we can then have the right to maybe slightly de-emphasize it for athletes and for some athletes as they go through the more summer months or the race-specific training. And so this is the time. It's the second mission. We want to build fitness and resilience, and now is the time to do it. The third element, the third mission behind fitness and resilience maintaining our focus on technique, is a real awareness of athletes and ability to teach, or for us to teach and for you guys to understand tension under the water. One of the missions of this year's preseason swimming is for you guys to actually really be able to embrace the tension that is important to hold if you're really going to create propulsion. Because if you think about being a rowing boat, this is your oar. And so you won't row very fast if this is your oar. We need to have a supple but firm hold on the water, and we will need to create great tension and power. I always talk about violence under the water. And if there's an element beyond, well beyond the importance of having a supple recovery, well beyond the importance of having your hand enter at exactly some angle, well beyond any of this, if you can grip it and rip it underwater consistently for Olympic distance, half Ironman or Ironman duration, you are going to swim very well. Well, there are a few technical elements that we need to get right, making sure that we're pulling in the right direction, making sure that we're able to get the hand in the place that we're holding water, but we need to be FAF. And if you don't know what FAF is, I can't say it on here, but it's very, very fit. And so we need to, and we also need to train you to have that feeling. So there's going to be a lot of speed work. We're going to introduce this year a lot of paddle work, more paddle work than we have previously. I've been testing using paddles with slower swimmers, and they're great to do. They actually are incorporating it. It's been very, very effective, as long as we're making sure that the paddles are being used in fast enough swimming that it's not slowing the stroke rate down. So when you do choose your paddles, make sure that you choose a paddle that isn't huge over your head, over your hand, and doesn't force you to slow your stroke rate down. But really for me, pre-season, 3 phases: fitness and resilience, technique, power. That's what we're looking for, power, and really sharpen. Much like what I talked about in running, it's far enough away from the race season that we have this opportunity. We can leverage the opportunity to maybe reduce specificity a little bit. So let's talk about the sessions and some of the elements that we're going to introduce. And why don't we start with that? Power and speed to start. One of the elements, not always as a main set, sometimes as an add-on, sometimes as even a pre-main set, you're going to see sessions that ask you to swim very, very fast with lots of rest. The interesting thing about these little sets, typically 25, sometimes 50s, while they seem quite innocuous, they're things to really focus on. And the interesting thing about them is the more rest that you have, the more painful it should be. Because what we're asking for is for you to go to maximal effort on those. So we want to, much in the same way as the hill running, we want you to over-recruit. And so we put, quite often, a larger surface on your hand, a paddle, and we ask you to move that paddle very fast through the water while pushing water backwards, hence the power. So those sessions are really important. It's about over-recruitment, it's about awareness of tension, and it becomes really effective for you if you carry that emphasis and say, okay, in my endurance swimming, I'm not just going to go back to swimming slow stroke rate at one speed, but I'm actually going to think whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And that's the rhythm. That's the cadence, if you want it in your head. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. That's how you pull in swimming. And that's what we're looking at the very top end to teach you on that side of stuff. So when you see those sessions, I think it's very, very important because they're actually technical sessions. They're actually gateways to cross-pollinating into regular triathlon-based, open water type race-specific training. So you've got some of that going on. A second element, a second session that you're going to see going all the way through and actually started back in postseason was the endurance tracker, as I'm calling it. So as I mentioned before in other discussions around the swimming, the reason we do the endurance tracker is that we're looking to accomplish the first mission, which is fitness and resilience. But we want to continue to be able to focus on technique. And part of the good swimming form in open water is to establish great posture, good tension under the water, which I just talked about, and be able to do it with really good rhythm. So there's a real tempo or rhythm to swimming well. Boom, 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 whoosh, 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 whoosh. There's really good rhythm that's important. So if at this current of most people's current state of fitness or swimmability, if I just delivered 5 by 500, it's close to impossible, even for my more elite swimmers, to be able to create and maintain really good rhythm in swimming. But if we give you very frequent short rests, there's a much better chance that you'll be able to swim with intent, maintain focus, maintain good rhythm, and you still achieve the fitness and resilience, but you're doing it with better tension under the water and better rhythm. That ultimately, that's what we're looking to try and achieve over the course of a single swim that's 1,500 or 2,000 or 4,000 meters in duration or so, that being roughly. So the real intent is to swim and be able to hold good form. By breaking down into 25s or 50s or 75s, it gives you that opportunity. The other opportunity underneath there is that every time you push off the wall after a rest, you can do, boom, a great streamline. And that means your first 2 or 3 strokes of every single lap you do is with great posture. And so straight away, if you get to reset every time, as we break through these sessions, and as we start to do 30-50s, 40-50s, 50-50s, 20-75s, 30-75s, 40-75s, 2100s, and we go up the line of the endurance tracker, you're actually starting to continuously burn good posture, good posture, good posture, and hopefully cross to the bridge that becomes more intuitive for you. So when you see these sessions, and I've outlined these as the potential drive over the course of about 20 weeks of duration, if the endurance tracker session for that day is too long in duration, and let's imagine that I give you 16 by 150, so 16 by 6 laps in a 25-yard or 25-meter pool. If you're losing rhythm and tempo on those, either because you're fatigued or you haven't actually built up through the postseason into the preseason, it's probably better to go backwards. There's no heroics in being able to finish at 8,400s. Quite frankly, I don't really care where we finish on the 8,400s. What I care about is being able to help you establish rhythm, tempo, tension, good posture. And so even with my San Francisco squad, I've been holding them back a little bit, even on the original sort of plan of progressing forward. Last week, I had them do 50s. Next week, I'm going to have them progress to 100s. But we're going through. So I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to plan support on that one if you're not too sure. Or even say, you know what, it's 20 by 150, but I'm going to go 50-50s because that's still holding the intent of the workout. And there is fluidity in the prescription on that side of stuff. The third type of session that you're going to see is, and really the final session that's worthy of note, is what I would call a building session. And the reason that I give you a building session is to help you right at the very start of this swim progression, develop a sense of self-awareness and develop a sense of pacing. This crosses sports. The swimming pool in the controlled environment is a great way for you to develop a sense of pacing, mostly because while you're swimming, you can't look at your watch, and that's a wonderful thing. I think to truly be effective in the building sessions, of which I'm going to give an example, you have to learn how to use the pace clock properly. If you've got a laptop on your wrist, I would get rid of it. Or if you want to record it to look at it afterwards, I think that information is relatively useless. But if you want to do that, you can do that. But the pace clock is golden on that. This morning, I gave a session to the San Francisco-based squad, and I'm going to outline it for you today, the first part of the main set, to give you an idea so you know what's coming. I asked them to go 8 swims of 150 yards. And the mission was, the first 2 swims was smooth. And I had them to get their time. the time that it took them to complete the first swim, they had to replicate that time on the second swim. So we've got 2 smooth swims. The goal is to go back to back, same time. Swims 3 and 4, they had to do the same thing. They had to go the same time on both, but they had to step up and go faster. So they had to increase their effort, increase tension underwater, and go faster. Swims 5 and 6, the same thing again. Both the same pacing, faster again. The last 2 swims were fast, and they were both the same again. So we had this stair stepper of what we would call, if you see it, build by 2. 8 swims of 150, build by 2. They then went through the same cycle again after a little easy swimming and did 8 100s, build by 2, and then they went 8 by 50s, build by 2. It's a wonderful way of being able to understand what it's like to do takeout speed. The first time we do it, just as we did today, you can imagine the mistake. They went out smooth in the first 2 swims, and so for some people, those first 2 swims were the fastest 2 swims. So there's this aha moment that occurs of, oh, hang on, when I'm swimming really good form with good intent, I'm actually traveling fast. And there becomes this game of self-management. So there's a lot of building swims, not just like the swim I gave there, but a lot of building efforts. And that's there to help you develop self-awareness, intuitively have a sense of pacing, but it's only really effective if you can use the pace clock. So of everything I said there, the endurance tracker, the building sessions, the power and speed sessions, there are other sessions that you'll see over the course of the year that are more demanding, or over the course of the phase, more demanding, starting to build threshold efforts, very, very strong efforts at a sustained threshold. But all of these sessions require you to be present in them. They require you to think through, and they require you to understand the intent and then stay focused on that intent. What am I looking to get out of that swimming? It's really, really important. As mentioned, I think that you will get the biggest yield if you embrace using the pace clock. And finally, if you are able to swim hundreds on a 130 send-off or faster, the headline news is you really should learn flip turns. That's an important part. And that's a side note just to Scott McMullen when he watches this. The last thing I want to talk about swimming is individual purple patch prescribed swimming coupled or balanced against master swimming. And whether it's better to swim alone and follow the exact specificity of every purple patch swim, or is it better to be in a group environment that maybe is less specific on the swim. Group swimming has a tremendous amount of net positives. You have, firstly, hopefully engaged coach on deck, keeping you accountable. It's much more sociable. And if you're the type of person that likes to go to the pool alone and swim alone, you need to seek professional help. But it's not the most stimulating session, but the accountability and the social component that comes with swimming other people, it really makes the whole sport much more enjoyable. And there is the challenge and the learning that comes with swimming with others. And if you can get in a group environment where there's other people that are slightly faster than you, it's a wonderful opportunity. In fact, I'll say this, that if an athlete was very, very serious and said, I want to improve my swimming, I don't care about anything else in my life, I want to improve my swimming, I would say it's impossible to maximize your potential without a group swimming environment. If you only swim alone, it is impossible to maximize. So what we have to balance is, most people are not in San Francisco. If you swim multiple times a week and you have an option to swim in a master's program, I would first look for a coach that's engaged, enthusiastic, and doesn't just write the work up on the board. Really engaged. That's the first thing. Look for a group that has consistency in showing up and an element of accountability, and I would hop in there. And even if that means losing a little bit of the specificity of what we just talked about, that environment will be really good. If the group has a tri-minded mindset or a lot of triathletes in there, that's a good thing as well. But I would say be willing to make that little sacrifice right now if it can help you enjoy it, create accountability and get consistency. If you're swimming 3 or 4 times a week, I would say pull the main purple patch key session and do that. And either try and do that by getting a couple of swim buddies to go and do it with you, or do it alone. But if you have the opportunity to blend the two, I think it's really, really worthwhile. But if you can find a group swim that's highly effective, it's great. I say all of that knowing that sometimes you're living in the middle of Canada and you don't have the option to find a group swim session and you're doing it solo. So we understand that. That's why we create the sessions as interesting as we possibly can. But group swimming is highly effective. If you're in San Francisco, you're very, very lucky. So make sure that you appreciate it and go from there. So those are my thoughts on pre-season swimming. We should dive into questions, and why don't we just go down the line? Let's start with Ali.
There we go. Okay.
Good. I can hear you, Ali.
Hopefully that was.
I can hear you.
Not helping. Basically, the getting back with the drills after being sick for 2 weeks was perfect. I'm also coming back from having shoulder issues for the last month or so on the right shoulder. The paddles tend to, I think what started it was I increased the amount of swimming really fast. I got my head out of the way and it's like, oh, I can do 3,500 yards, no problem. And I went up from like 25 fairly quickly and fairly aggressively and burned out the shoulder again. So paddles seem to be kind of when I try to actually have that tension under the water, especially with the paddles, that seems to hyperextend my shoulder some, that and also trying to increase my reach. Those are the 3 things that the increasing endurance, greater tension, and using paddles. And I'm not quite sure with tomorrow's endurance tracker, where do I cut the corners to make sure I can continue to progress? After the swim on Tuesday, which was drills, I ached, but it wasn't right inside the muscle, right inside the joint.
I'm muted to help your feedback. So I'll go back. With the if you've got your shoulder issues and you're coming back, I would do a couple of things. The first, I would remove the paddles for tomorrow. Wear a buoy still. The reach is remember that you're not reaching here, so there shouldn't be any extension. All you're doing is making sure that the hand is not entering here. So the hand just needs to drop in. There should be no shoulder tension on where the hand's dropping in. It's just dropping in towards full extension, but not over full extension. That just happens over the body, okay? But I would, with you coming back, I think that you're a candidate to maybe, I haven't looked at your specific endurance tracker, what Mike put in there for you, but I would have you do no more than 25s or 50s tomorrow. So if you did something like 40 50s tomorrow, that would be a great endurance tracker with 10 seconds rest where you're able to really hold good rhythm and form, but I would do it without paddles.
Okay, quick follow-up question then. I thought I was supposed to essentially, to use the term, reach out for the bumper. I thought I was supposed to extend under the water before starting the actual catch. No?
Well, so as the hand is entering, as the hand is entering, you're close to full extension, wherever it's flopping and landing. So you're not entering rigidly. That's just a side point for now. But wherever the hand enters, but when you're reaching for the bumper, whatever you call it, I've never heard that before, but it sounds good. When you're reaching for the bumper, the one rotation that does occur in swimming is shoulder rotation. Yeah. So you're almost like you're reaching into a closet. Yes, your hand's moving to this, but there's still no more extension here versus doing this. Yeah, where you're impinging. So my shoulder is at that angle right now. You're not doing that. It's actually facing down here. And yes, there is, but there's 2 rotations in swimming. There's this rotation and there's this rotation. Okay? Everyone talks about rotation of the hips. just let the hips follow along. You don't need, the hips will not stay flat for sure, but what we don't want the hips to do is this. With the shoulders, there is a little bit of this rotation. That's what we're looking at, is boom, this rotation, but that's not putting any load on the shoulder at all. In fact, it's releasing the shoulder. And so just because you're extending doesn't mean that you're putting pressure on the shoulder. There's no pressure, but in fact, I would say that you're taking pressure off with the extension.
Okay, I think it's mostly hypermobility where I'm actually sort of extending out the shoulder out of itself, I guess. But I think I can do what you just said and work with that.
That's a control thing, and because of your hypermobility. So that's yeah, perfect. Let's go to Aberdeen.
Hi, Matt. I think you've probably touched on this a little bit, but it's sort of a combination question. But I tried to do one of the endurance trackers on Tuesday morning, 30 by 100, and just completely failed, basically. So after about 6 100s, I just didn't feel like I could hold the pace, and my form was going as well. So I cut it down to the rest of them at 50, so I think it's like 40, 50s I had left or something. Which hopefully, from what it sounds like, that's probably the right thing to do. But the question is, so I think I must just be fatigued. I sometimes find when I morning swim, I just don't have the power in my arms. I'm not sure why. I was morning swimming this morning, and I wasn't too bad. But I guess the question is, one, whether if you're fatigued, it's worth just dropping down to 50s, or whether to move it to a completely separate session. And I guess two is whether that's common, having low arm power in the mornings. I seem all right running or cycling, so it's just a bit odd.
Let's take a step back. 3100s as an endurance tracker isn't easy, is it? It's on the top point. And so there is no magic right way. If I look at sometimes when I look at I'll give you an example to start. When we came back from the new year, we had at that stage, I think it was in the San Francisco, the overall endurance sort of mindset tracker I had, I think it was at 25 or 24 100s. So, a week or so ago. And I was planning to do it on the Thursday, and on the Tuesday swim, everyone looked like they were this much lower in the water. They were just really flat coming off the new. And I just thought, there's not going to be any value to doing this. What's the intent? The intent is to develop resilience. It's not to have people fail. And none of you guys look for a short way out. No one is skipping stuff. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be on this call. This is. So I believe that athletes are engaged and not looking for the easy way out. And I looked at them and just thought, there's no way I'm going to have them do 25 100s. And so I had them do 50 50s, and it became a really positive set. The same total duration. And it was really, really good because they could achieve 50 50s with good form. 25 100s, they just would have been swimming up the pool slower. So in your situation, if you get to 30 100s and you're going through the warm-up, you go through the pre-main set, and you're like, wow, I'm tired. I'm really tired. It's not such a bad thing to do what you did. Let's see what happens, because sometimes the engine opens up. I would say if you're doing them on 5 seconds extra slower, so if you did your 25 100s on a 130 send-off just arbitrarily, and now I'm going to do these on 135 and see where I go to, quite often the engine comes back. But that tends to happen in swimming more if you've got a swimming background. So my background, quite often that comes. If you're less of a swimming background, there becomes this decline. And if the last 25 of them are rubbish, well, all you've done is just pass the mental test. And there's times for that, but not right now. Not in pre-season, not at the start of pre-season, when the intent of the workout is to build fitness, build resilience, and everything else. And so right there, I'd go, this isn't happening. What can I do today? And I would actually, in that case, when there was real fatigue and I was sort of almost feeling like I was failing, I would do 25s or 50s, nothing beyond. And I would probably do 60 25s, to be honest. And, you know, Laurence, who's our fastest swimmer in our group, I'd have her go 60 25s on 20. That would be her group, 60 25s on 20. She'd just... So other people are going 45 or 46 25s on 30. And that's obviously at the other end of the pool. So, but highly effective. You're still getting everything that you need out of the set. It's something that's achievable. So these endurance tracker workouts, they're not heroic workouts. They're not out there to let's see how we can drive people. And I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm currently building our next block for this year. I'm already deviating away from thinking we're going to get to 8-400s. I think that I'm going to move that well out, because we will do 8-400s, but not as a part of the endurance tracker. You know, so those 8-400s will have a different mission. And the endurance tracker will probably be stuck at 150s, maybe 200s at the most. It's a good set, good global set. If an athlete does that, by the way, if I get a report from an individually coached athlete, hey, you prescribed 24 100s, I was terrible, I shifted it and did 40 50s. My instinct is not, oh, you lazy bum. My instinct is, oh, they've got a pretty good sense of self-management. You know, now, if they do that every single time and they do it on the bike and they do it on the run, then there's a different conversation. But that's not what triathletes are. We have to appreciate I always have a thing. If you turn your back on a group of age group swimmers, they're going to be hiding in the gutters and skipping swimming. If you turn your back on triathletes, they're going to double the session. So having the smarts to manage yourself, I think is, look, what's the intent? That comes down to it. So there's plenty of hard work to challenge you. So that's good stuff. Let's go to Tennessee.
Yeah, this is semi swim question, but more of a global too on everything. I've been a little bit out of the training rhythm after a late October surgery on the knee and rehabbing that, and really just getting back into the regular training rhythm. I never stopped training, but the frequency and the intensity has been much lower over the last 8 weeks or so. So I'm just getting back into it. I'm struggling a little bit trying to jump back in midstream here in the fresh workouts. So I'm just scaling and doing what I can, and I'm feeling better week by week. But any suggestions, both as it relates to swim and the bike run stuff as well?
Yeah, we should maybe think about pulling back with you and giving you some postseason work, Roger. To have you, because you're scaling, we might actually give you some postseason work to have you build up, because you're coming back off the surgery.
Right.
It might be the better thing to do, to build the platform consistently, which we've done actually with athletes don't necessarily know that they're receiving postseason work, but we've decided to make that to set them up for success, and that's the personalization side. So we might actually do that with you.
Okay, well, I've got some tweaks on my portal anyway, so I'll just put a note when I send in the tweaks on the portal and mention that you suggested that. And
the last block of postseason, I think, would be very good.
Yeah, and then I guess I'm also I haven't really finalized race planning for this year, but I'm thinking initially maybe not to do a full, but to stick to the halves and maybe try to get to Chattanooga.
I almost interrupted you and said, I hope you're going to tell me that you're not going to do a full this year.
And so but right now I'm thinking Haines City, Raleigh, which was what I did last year with the focus on Raleigh, obviously, but Haines City's not far away. But do you think Haines City's too early to even be racing half?
No, you can go and do it. It's the lens that you take on it. It's everything's within context, yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's a good thing. I think you need something reasonably close to bubble your enthusiasm. Maybe you're a little bit of fear for the distance and it's looming on there. It's a good thing, but there's no health risk or musculoskeletal risk from doing it.
Okay. Good.
And it will be interesting in a non-emotional way to see how you scratch up relative to last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how and I would say not how much better can I be, but how close can I be to my performance last year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves with Gulf Coast 30 days later in kind of the same area of the country. It might be a very different race, relatively speaking, to competition. And
yeah, that's true. And but I would use this year to have the freedom to really. We all know what an Ironman does for our psyche and for the necessity of preparation. It draws us away from the freedom to just say, I'm going to go race. I'm going to be trying to become a better athlete this year. And with the fact that this is your lifestyle sport, it's not, well, I'm going to retire from the sport in September. It's a great thing. And then Chattanooga, if we can get you into Chattanooga, what a great way. It's towards the end of the year. And it's going to be a super race, and it'll be very, very social. So you typically go to USA Team Nationals, which is obviously an option as well. So
Yep, good. Thanks.
That's what I would go for. Yeah, it's good.
Appreciate it.
Tim, are you there or are you just listening? I think the same applies for Boris. I'm not sure if they can speak or they're just sort of loitering while they're working. Boris?
I'm actually here, but I was in the jury room, so I was muted.
Oh, okay. Any specific questions or you're in the jury room?
In the jury room, just taking advantage of the fact that I actually can make one of these meetings. So I was listening in. No questions.
Okay, good stuff. They're guilty for sure. Super Tim. I saw you unmute, Tim, so I think that you're there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Did you hear me when I thought I responded?
Oh no, I didn't hear you, Tim. Sorry. Happy New Year, Captain.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Any specific questions?
No specific questions. I was just taking the opportunity, since I could actually listen into one of these, to join in.
Awesome. I saw you live, so welcome. I'm glad you're here. Genevieve.
I am. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Actually, I'm happy that I could join today. I was having another problem. Was I the only one having a problem to join today? Join late because I was with the internet link. Could it be with the transfer program, you think?
I don't know. I launched it and it told me the page was not loading, and so I resent about 5 minutes later a second link. Just
Okay. So anyhow, I'm here, and I'm a bit flat today. Came back Monday from work with 6 days, actually 5 full days in Europe. So I'm just still playing with catch up with jet lag. I did a ski session. I did Tuesday and Wednesday yesterday, ski, strength yesterday, bike and swim. I did the drill one, and tomorrow I'm supposed to do the endurance tracker. I've been very consistent in swimming by loading that, but not so much on biking. So I was thinking this week of flushing one swim, but putting a bike just to kind of catch back on the bike. And I'm flat today. I was thinking today, you're going to laugh at that, but to go ice skating, because I have a winter triathlon to do by the end of February, and I need to get back in my skates just to lose my leg to be prepped for a long classic 10 to 15K tomorrow morning with the bike before I head out to work again. And so I need to get back into that.
All in favor for that. My expertise as it comes to the cross-pollination of ice skating to running is limited, but the action is not very different from skate skiing, so there's certainly no negative from doing that. So
just to reconnect with my skate for half an hour-ish and just keep my fuel to do 2 quality sessions tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll chat with Michael at the end of the day just to set everything up. So everything seems to be already in my portal, so I'm pretty happy about that. And transition seems to be so smooth, and that's about it. And my boyfriend bought me some running snowshoe for Christmas, so I need to. would it be a good idea to do those running sessions, but in those snowshoe? Because again, I need to run in snowshoe in the winter triathlon by the end of February. So I'm just trying to, build
the resilience. Yeah,
a little bit away from San Francisco weather for summer triathlon, but we signed up for a little sprint for fun, and just after those 2 races in La Pette for the weekend before. So it's going to be good for foundation, I guess, definitely.
No, it's good. It's really good. So
Okay, so I'll
enjoy that. I have no problem with you cross-pollinating on that at all.
okay, cross-pollinating. I like that word. Okay.
Yeah, I never thought I'd say cross-pollination 4 times in an hour, but there I have. I think I've used it 4 times in an hour. It must be stuck in my head. So
Well, I joined late, so it's the first time I hear that. So you will forgive. Thank you.
Anyone else have any specific questions? Don't anymore. If not, we are ejecting and getting ready for the weekend. We talk about the bike with Paul on Monday, so we go from there. So happy weekend, guys. I hope everyone has a great time. We'll connect on the other side. Take care. Bye.